my dearest friends, I have a handful, and that's it, is named John Heubusch. He is the executive director of the Reagan Library and Foundation. He's been a very close friend of mine for a very long time, and for a reason. He's a man of unparalleled integrity and wisdom and judgment. He's enormously intelligent. He has ensured that the Reagan Library is among the finest institutions on the planet, which is why I so enjoy going there, and especially enjoy going there when my books come out to meet so many of you. And now he has his second novel that has come out, and he has become a top novelist, and it's called The Second Coming. It's a great thriller. John Heubusch, how are you, my friend?
I am great, Mark. You're just way too kind, and it's so just great to hear your voice today.
But it is really, really true. What you do for the Republic, how you ensure that that our President Ronald Reagan, that his legacy endures, it is crucially, crucially important. Now, the book is The Second Coming. It's your second novel. I want to stay focused on this one, though. What is it about, generally?
You know, Mark, I don't know if it'll happen in your or my lifetime, but, there's a couple of dozen animals on this planet that have been cloned. Eventually, someone with enough money and enough craziness is going to get around to cloning a human being. And when that happens, this world's going to change. This book is all about not only what happens when someone figures out how to clone a human being, but what happens if someone were to get a little piece of DNA, a little piece of speck of blood off of the famous Shroud of Turin, which is the burial cloth, which many millions of people feel is the burial cloth of Jesus Christ. So think about, Mark, a scientific kind of second coming. And that's what this book is all about. It's about how the world would change if science brought about a second coming. It's a fiction novel, you know, it's not real life, but sometimes fiction turns into real life, and that's what this book is about.
But it's a fascinating journey you take us on, and that's really what fiction is about, right? I mean, you write about the possibilities that are out there, people's imaginations. How did you come up with this idea?
You know, Mark, when I had the chance to used to run a big foundation, we did a lot of historical exploration. We studied mysteries, and one of the last great American mysteries is the whereabouts of Amelia Earhart. What happened to her back in the 1930s when she got lost somewhere in the Pacific? And I went out on an adventure to try to find her airplane, and I was on the ocean for 2 months out in the lonely South Pacific. I had a lot of time on my hands, and I thought back to when I was back in Catholic school, and I saw a documentary about this famous Shroud of Turin, and so I had time on my hands, and I came up with this novel called The Second Coming, and it's just out published yesterday. Mark, you're the first and best, I think, interview that I'm having about the book, and I'm just honored to be on your show to talk about it.
Well, it's a great honor for me, and I just want the millions of listeners to know what a compelling book this is. It's particularly good this summer as we come to a close around the pool, around the beach, wherever people are in the mountains and so forth, to enjoy it. It's in many ways, it's a very thought-provoking book. It's a scary book, and yet it is enormously entertaining. Is that why we call books like this a thriller?
Yeah, it is, Mark. You know, there's not a day that goes by where I'm not driving home and listening to your show, and you have so many great authors on. And I think, as you know, 99, almost 100% of them write terrific, conservative, thought-provoking books. And we've got so many here at the Reagan Library that are about Reagan and other great conservative authors. But as you say, you know, every once in a while you try to take a little break from life and explore with your imagination. Novels like this, and The Second Coming hopefully will be one like that for America. It was a lot of fun to write. I hope readers have as much fun reading it as I did writing it.
And let me ask you this: the central theme here on this cloning issue, human cloning, is that something you support?
No, not at all. I think it could just turn humanity upside down. It's not something I could ever support, but interestingly enough, Mark, it's not outlawed in the United States. I mean, we've kind of morally outlawed it, right? I mean, we think it would just be an incredibly terrible thing to have happen. But But interestingly enough, it's not legal in several states, but the United States government has never outlawed it. And there are some countries in this world where it's thought to be people are on the edge of trying to make it happen. And if it does happen, it'll be a tragedy. But I honestly think it's something that could happen someday.
You know, you say in the acknowledgments section of your book that you thank several doctors whom you noted helped to save your life. You want to expand on that briefly?
Yeah, Mark, you know, it's a really, really strange coincidence, but when I was writing The Second Coming, one of my characters is a character who's a priest, and he finds out tragically that he has a terrible form of incurable cancer. And I remember researching it, Mark, and I looked up, you know, what are the 5 worst cancers that someone might get that might be, you know, where it's just not retrievable. You're going to pass away. And I came to find in the middle of writing my own book that I didn't know it, but I had one of those cancers. And this was discovered just about 5 years ago, Mark. And by some incredible stroke of miracle and some of the best doctors on this world, here I sit still talking to you. I had one of those cancers, and I'm now just over 1 year cancer-free. So, you know, by the grace of God go I, right? And but I was able to finish the novel, you know, even knowing that I felt kind of like the novel was about halfway done, and I thought, well, if I'm not going to be around, let's at least have this book left behind, and that's what it's called, The Second Coming. In some respects, Mark, I think maybe I was given a second chance.
And I know you've been fighting this esophageal cancer now. How many years has it been, John?
5 years. 5 years. So I've been through treatments for 4 years and cancer-free now for just over a year, and it's just every day's a gift, Mark. That's when something like that happens to you. That's just how you feel about life. And
you have a beautiful family. Tell us about your family.
Oh, my beautiful, my wife Marcella. She's just a gift. She's just a gift. She's helped bring me, keep me around, and my 2 beautiful kids, Max and Jordana, and they're as you know, Mark, you've got a wonderful family. They're your reasons for living, right? And they're what have kept me around.
All right, we're going to get into this book a little bit more because it is a very, very compelling fiction. That is The Second Coming, a thriller by John Heubusch, who is the executive director of the Reagan Library and Foundation. We'll be right back. I'm with the great John Heubusch, novelist, as well as executive director of the Reagan Library and Foundation. Is a tremendous hit out right now. The fiction, the novel, The Second Coming, which is a thriller. I want to ask you a couple of questions, further questions. This is a sequel to your first book, The Shroud Conspiracy. But it's about what happens when some very unsavory characters use science and DNA and human cloning in order to bring about a second coming of Jesus, right?
That's right.
And to gain power for their cult and dominate the world with their faith. It's what occurs when science is used on one hand to destroy Christianity and on the other hand to save it. And in the end, it's about bad people who use science to subvert faith, about good people who use science to save it. Does that sum it up pretty well?
Yeah, it does, Mark. It really does. It's if this sounds a little bit like the Da Vinci Code or Angels and Demons, written by that fellow Dan Brown, it's because this book fits right in that category, Mark. It really is a religious thriller that your readers, if they got some spare time on your listeners, if they've got some spare time on their hands, they really might find a fun read.
And yet it's quite unique. In fact, Gary Sinise, who's a dear friend of yours and a dear friend of mine, he said they ought to make a movie out of this. That's how impressed he was with it. Brad Thor, who is a well-known great fiction writer, he's called it electrifying thriller. Then he says it delivers cover to cover. These people are not, shall I say, liberal with their praise in books, potential movies, and so forth. What do you think it is about your book that is so compelling?
Mark, let's start with the fact that there's not a lot of conservative authors out there that put out fiction and thrillers like this. I'm probably one of just a handful. So my day job, I run the Reagan Library. I just do the best I can to keep President Reagan's memory alive and to maybe make sure there's a tribute to his legacy. But I guess you might say moonlighting. My night job is I write novels in my other part of my career, and this one, it's got everything from miracles to science and faith. It's a love story. It's good versus evil. It's and you can find it at Barnes and Noble, and you can find it in Amazon, and it's out there today. Hopefully, like the first book, it's going to be another runaway bestseller.
Well, we've linked to it on Mark Levin Show Facebook and Mark Levin Show Twitter. People can go directly to Amazon.com, and also every major bookstore, even minor bookstores, have it, The Second Coming of Thriller. Let me ask you this. How did you become, just give me a brief explanation for the audience, how did you wind up becoming the executive director of the Reagan Library and your relationship with Nancy Reagan and the Reagan family?
Good question, Mark. I right out of college, first day on the job when I worked on Capitol Hill, I ran over from the Capitol, the U.S. Capitol, and watched President Ronald Reagan raise his right hand and take the oath of office. I mean, what a thrill. My last day working on Capitol Hill 8 years later, I watched that helicopter Marine One with Ronald Reagan circle the city. And those 8 years affected me like nothing else. It set me on a path to want to do whatever I can to help this country. And, I guess it showed because I had several jobs since then, and I did pretty well in some of these jobs. And I was sitting on a beach one day, and I got a phone call from Nancy Reagan. And
wow.
She said, John, look, Ronnie's passed now, and I'm here trying to get President Reagan's foundation to take it to the next level. Can you come up and help me? And I packed up my family stuff. We moved to Los Angeles, and 8 years later, here I am talking to you, Mark. It's been the honor of my life to run President Reagan's foundation and run his library, and it's the best decision I ever made.
And you worked very closely with Mrs. Reagan, didn't you?
Oh yeah, for years until she passed just a couple of years ago. And as we speak, Mark, I'm looking out at the great Pacific Ocean and across the mountain range, that famous range that where President Reagan, his gravesite, I can see it from here. He and Mrs. Reagan lie at rest here at the Reagan Library. It's an awe-inspiring place to come to work every day.
Are you going to be doing some book signings?
I am. In fact, I just did one last night when we launched the book here at the Reagan Library, but I'll be doing one in Washington, D.C. on September 12th when I'm back there, Mark. Hopefully I can see you, and so I'm arranging one in New York. And
well, now, hold on now. You're going to do one in Washington on September 12th. What time, what place?
It's called the O Street Mansion is the place where it's happening. It's at 2020 O Street Northwest in Washington, D.C., and that's on September 12th at 6 p.m. In the nation's capital. If you want to go, you can just go to their website and register to come, and we'd love to have anyone there who wants to be there for a book signing. And, if somebody wants a signed book and they can't make it there, they can just go to the Reagan Foundation's website and buy a book there, and I'm happy to sign it and send it to them directly.
All right, so give us, Mr. Producer, let's put that link up on my social sites. What is the exact link?
If they just go to reaganfoundation.org/store, they'll see the book right there, and all they need to do is click on it and buy it, and I'm happy to sign and personalize and send it out directly.
Give us that again?
reaganfoundation.org or reaganlibrary.com, but just make you put /store after that, and my book will pop right on up, called The Second Coming.
You get into the store, there's the Second Coming, your book, and if they buy it through this program now, you will sign it, correct?
That's right. I'll sign it, personalize it, send it right on out.
Well, that's very, very exciting. So let me ask you this. How long did it take you to write The Second Coming?
The draft, Mark, it took me 6 months to write it. As I was telling you, halfway through, I discovered I had a really tough disease, and so I just kept plowing away at it, though. So it took 6 months, and I think it took about another 6 months after that to polish it up, and I did it while I was sitting there hooked up to the chemotherapy machines, and so I like I said, I think I got a second chance in life. In some respects, that's the reason the book's called The Second Coming.
You know, John, these major publishers, they don't just take anybody off the street and give them a contract to write a fiction book. They get thousands and thousands of people sending them manuscripts or outlines of fiction books that they want to write. And yet you're one of a tiny percentage of people this major publisher decided to choose. Major publisher of major authors and major books. I mean, that's pretty compelling, isn't it?
Yeah, Mark, when you say it like that, it sounds kind of impressive, doesn't it?
It is impressive.
Well, it's Simon & Schuster. They're a great company, and I'm just honored. I'm a little humble about it, but I'm just honored they'd find me and think that I've got the writing ability to keep people interested. And I think I do. I do the best I can, and hopefully people will like reading it.
And the thing is, it's not like you have a major radio audience or something like that. You have to rely on other people to come on their shows and to talk about it and so forth. So your book stands on its own. That's how compelling it is. And I want to strongly encourage people to get their copy tonight, The Second Coming, this thriller by my dear friend John Heubusch. You can go to the Reagan site and get it signed. That's Reagan Library, I think you said .com, correct?
That's right, ReaganLibrary.com/store, and you can buy the book there and get it personalized, or you can go to Amazon.com or pick it up in any Barnes & Noble across the country.
So let's put that Reagan site up there too, Mr. Producer. People want it says. So folks, you can get it now. My recommendation, I'm well aware of how these major publishers, including mine, work. They print a limited number of first edition books up front. And then they do successive printings, and they will with John, because John is a big author. And then they do successive printings, second, third, fourth edition. You want the first edition. And, frankly, and this is going to be tough on John, you want the first edition signed. So I strongly encourage you to do it. Now, it would be a great gift, but more than that, I know you're going to like this book. I don't read a lot of fiction. I read John's books and a few others. The Second Coming, a thriller by John Heubusch. Go to ReaganLibrary.com. Go to their store. Go there now. Get the first edition before they run out of the first edition. Get it signed. That's my recommendation. Great gift. Even though here we are in August, it's great for Christmas and Hanukkah. But more than that, it's a great read during the summer. So go ahead and go out there and grab a copy of the book. And by the way, you can Google John's name and see all of his accomplishments over the years. John Heubusch, Heubusch, John Heubusch. And if you're out and about and you're within 1,000 miles of the Reagan Library, I cannot stress enough, you really need to go there. There was a wonderful piece by Quinn Hillier, I believe it was at National Review or somewhere today, he sent me a link, about his visit to the Reagan Library last week, and he could not praise it enough. It is that compelling. And it really is, John. You and your team, really, you've done a marvelous job, and you deserve all the credit in the world. And on top of that, you're writing these magnificent fiction novels. So God bless you, my friend, and the best of luck. And I know my audience is going to be extremely interested in this book.
Mark, I cannot thank you enough. You're just a dear friend, and you have the best audience in the world. So I'm just so happy I was able to talk to him about this book, The Second.
Well, but John, the book speaks for itself. If people will get it, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Yep. You take care of yourself, my brother.
You do the same, my brother. Take care.
All right, God bless. Folks, I'm not kidding. I'm telling you, particularly those of you who like to read fiction, and some of us who don't read a lot of fiction, you're really going to like this book, The Second Coming, a thriller by John Heubusch. I don't have a lot of novelists on this show, but whenever John has a book, I do. And Gary Sinise is right. This would make a terrific movie. And Brad Thor is right. This is an outstanding novel. I strongly encourage it. Go to my social sites. The links are all there. And I strongly encourage you to get the first edition. And if you can, get it signed. He just offered to sign it. So I would encourage you to go to their link at the Reagan Library, get a copy, and get it signed.